Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People. In today's episode, Karen once followed me at airport because I was a lost child. She couldn't eat it in the end. Entitled son at hospital. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Karen once followed me at airport because I was a lost child. This probably needs context before I start. Both my parents are divorced and live in two separate states. I live with my mom and grandparents in Nashville, Tennessee, while over school breaks I visit my dad in Rochester, New York. I've flown alone since I was 5, and when I turned 13 my parents said it was okay if I travel without an escort on my layovers as long as I text them when I'm boarding when I land. Fair enough. This happened when I was 16. Now, I don't look my age and never have. There's a bad combination in my family, short genes, and a baby face. I was lucky enough to inherit both. To give you a rough image, I'm a 5 feet 0 inches foot tall girl who weighs about 125 pounds with a baby face, easy for people to mistake me as younger than I am. Well, flying was always the worst offense because I was alone. I also have bad anxiety and stutter a lot when I'm nervous, so it only adds to the age confusion more. I was coming back from New York and had a 2-hour layover in Baltimore. I decided to get some food at Chipotle. While I was eating at the food court, minding my own business and scrolling through my phone, this middle-aged, white, blonde woman with her 2 kids walked up to me. We'll just call her Karen. "Kay, hi honey, are you okay?" Yes, why ask? "Kay, well you seem young and you're by yourself." Oh great, here we go again. This wasn't the first time this happened, so I calmly told her that I was fine, and thanks for the concern. Well, apparently, Karen didn't like my answer. Her tone soon changed from a caring, concerned citizen to a demanding. She told me I wasn't fine because I was a minor by myself and needed adult supervision to fly. She was correct about the minor part, but the supervision part was BS. I was flying Southwest, who allows anyone 12 and older to travel by themselves, but someone is still supervising you on the flight until you're 15. I did not need adult supervision to be in the airport past security alone, and I told her this. I politely asked her to leave me alone, and I understand the confusion. Karen wasn't having it. "Kay, you're lying." How? "Kay, I have kids and I know the airport policy about minors." Clearly you don't. I've already said I'm fine, can you please leave me alone?" "Kay, no, where are your parents?" It doesn't matter." "Kay, yes it does, I need to complain to them." At this point, I was getting annoyed. I didn't want to tell her about the fact my parents were divorced, but back then I saw it as the only way for her to fully understand the situation and leave me alone. Ma'am, I'm 16 years old, my mom is in Nashville waiting for me, and my dad is New York. Neither of them are in this airport, and they both know I'm by myself and are okay with it. I'm allowed to have a layover by myself, and I'm not considered an unaccompanied minor when I'm 16 years old according to the airline. Now please leave me alone." "Kay, no, you're lying." How am I lying?" "Kay, I know you're lying because I have children. I know how rebellious they are, and you are definitely not 16 years old." I was getting mad at this point. For one, what right do you have to tell me how old I am? And secondly, your children look 7 and 5 years old, a little too young to be going through a teenage rebellion. I stood up, put my food in my bag and told her. I think I know how old I am." "Kay, where's your proof?" I took out my driver's license. Looking back I probably shouldn't have, but I was desperate for her to go away, with not only my birthday but the fact I had one in the first place signified I was 16 or older. I didn't want to show this lady my other information, so I let her see the birthday and nothing more. Karen wasn't going to swallow her pride and walk away. "Kay, that still doesn't excuse you from walking around the airport by yourself. How do I know you aren't running away from home?" I wanted to tell her that even if I was, it was none of her business. I repeated Southwest policy to her and told her that if she still didn't believe me, she could go on their website and check for herself or ask an employee. I then repeated for her to leave me alone or I'd get security. My bluff didn't seem to affect her. She said I wasn't going anywhere and I had to come with her and find my parents. I simply told her no and began reaching for my backpack. The Karen grabbed my wrist and started pulling me. I yanked my wrist away, grabbed my backpack and started running. At that point people were watching and her kids seemed distressed, but I didn't care. I made a run for my gate. Now I'm not very athletic, but I'm definitely faster than this overweight single mom. I eventually made it to my gate and took a seat at one of the chairs. Still feeling uneasy, I told the lady at the gate what happened and that I was still shaken up. She understood and said if she saw a woman matching the description near the gate she'd make sure she didn't come near me, and if she did security would be alerted. Well, turns out my gut was right, and after about an hour I saw her looking around the different gates. I told the lady and she nodded. She instructed me to get behind the desk as the Karen approached. Here's basically the conversation. "Kay, excuse me, that child behind you is not allowed to be in the airport by herself." She turned to me and asked me if I was an unaccompanied minor. I answered no. "W, if she's not an unaccompanied minor, then she can be in the airport by herself." "Kay, she's lying, she can't be 16, she showed me a fake ID." "W, oh really?" She turned to me and asked to see my boarding pass. I gladly handed it to her. She reviewed it and said it looked fine. She then asked to see what I showed the Karen. I handed her my driver's license that she also said looked fine. Karen demanded the woman at the desk handed me over to her so she could take me to her gate and find my parents. This scared me. I knew I wasn't going anywhere with this woman, but it didn't stop me from being scared. "W, ma'am, is this girl your child?" "K, no." "W, then I'm afraid I cannot give her to you. I can assure you she's in good hands." "K, no she's not, because she's rebellious and lying. I'm clearly more qualified to take care of her considering I have children and you don't." That did it. At this point I could feel a panic attack coming on. The nice woman must have noticed this. She told the Karen that either she goes to her gate and leaves me alone or security will be called. Karen huffed and puffed, saying the front desk lady I didn't know her own airline policies and she'll be calling 911 for child endangerment and Southwest was going to get shut down for this. The lady at the desk only nodded. After Karen was done with her rant she walked away before security could come. Before she left the lady asked her name so she could file a complaint for her, an obvious lie, and she told her, "We'll just keep her name as Karen." The lady at the desk offered to find her gate, inform them of what happened and made sure she didn't leave her gate to make me feel safer. I agreed and we found out her gate was in the international terminal. Knowing this woman wanted to take me to a completely different terminal, the international terminal no less, made me even more scared, but I was assured everything was going to be alright. Her gate was informed about the situation and they said that would make sure she wouldn't leave the terminal once she arrived. It made me feel a lot better. I'm 19 now and still haven't grown taller. I'm in college now and still fly by myself. I'm still a little shaken up from the whole thing, but I still fly on my own, but I make sure to carry around my ID and passport, and if anyone asked if I needed help, I'd quickly answer no and walk away. That may make me look more suspicious, but I don't care. I'd rather come across rude than have to deal with another crazy Karen. Man, this post was long. Thanks for reading all the way if you did. There is helpful and there is lunacy. This woman was not being helpful. I do hope that someone verified that the children with her were her children and that she had legal custody of them. I am glad that the employees helped you, but I wish they had done more. The local police should have had a serious fear of God talk with Karen, explaining that they are keeping a record of this event, and if she isn't local, forwarding a copy to her local agency. If she believed a child was in danger, she would have been fine contacting security herself and asking them to make sure everything was okay. Trying to force you to accompany her and pursuing you suggests her primary concern was her displeasure at you not instantly doing what she wanted and therefore being rebellious. International terminal. Grabbing what she thought was a child to take her to her parents. I think you were spotted by a child procurer. They hunt in airports, train stations, subways, for children alone, or young-looking girls for reasons. Most especially for transport to large cities or other countries. The desk agent probably saved your life. I am so very glad you are safe and okay. I was thinking similar. This sounds less like your average out-of-control Karen and more like a genuine kidnapping attempt. I'm so glad Up got away safely. Rather than risking your ID being stolen, just start screaming security, help. They'll either disappear or security will come to assist you. The Karen grabbed my wrist and started pulling me. Help! Help! I don't know this woman. She is trying to kidnap me. Help! Help! So to everyone saying I should have screamed for help, yeah, you're right, but I was a panicked 16-year-old with a flight or fight response who didn't want to get myself into more trouble, even though I probably wouldn't have. I was alone in an airport with no one but myself, so I was beyond panicked and didn't make the right call. I also genuinely hope her children are safe. I do want to clarify, if this makes anyone feel better, that I called my mom after this happened and told her about it. She told me she asked an old student of hers who lived in the area, she's a teacher and she keeps in touch with a lot of her students who graduated, about notifying the authorities in Baltimore, and she also tried herself, but I'm not sure what happened afterwards since I was never asked for a statement or anything. I'm sorry I can't say what happened after that, but I genuinely hope that if this woman was a danger to these kids, then the authorities were able to get them away from her and that they're safe. She couldn't eat it in the end. Years ago, my parents and I went to Asia to visit family and stayed at a Sheraton Beach resort that included a breakfast buffet. They had a really nice omelet station where you choose your ingredients and a guy would make your omelet while you wait. The cook signaled me to raise my plate so he could just slide it off the pan onto my plate. The cook began tipping the pan when suddenly a plate out of nowhere suddenly snuck on top of my plate and the omelet fell on it. A Chinese woman came out nowhere had just stolen my omelet. The cook and I were just shocked. I just said what the hell, looked at her and was gonna say something, and decided if she was willing to go that far and was able to pull off that ninja level sneakiness, she deserved the omelet. I just looked at the chef and laughed. The cook smiled and made me another omelet. As I was walking back to my table, I saw the woman complaining in Mandarin about something. A guy who was in line behind me at the omelet station walked by and said, "She's complaining about how she can't eat this cause there's so much cheese on it and she's not used how fatty it was / being lactose intolerant." LOL. My relatives had warned me about new money Chinese tourists and how they look down on other Asians. Maybe she thought I was a local? Little did I know that I would run into many more on my trip. I'm sure she was shitting through the eye of a needle later that day if she was lactose intolerant. Instant karma. Should have immediately tipped her plate so the omelet fell off. Entitled Chinese women are the worst. Entitled son at hospital. In a previous life I was a nurse, and one story always sticks in my mind. I was on a discharge ward juggling lots of patients trying to get home, some by ambulance, but the majority had to rely on relatives to come and collect them. Most relatives were fine with this, but the occasional ones made it very clear that collecting their relative was an inconvenience. We had an elderly lady come down to the unit to wait one day. She was a sweetheart and we got on like a house on fire. I kept an eye on her throughout the day and ensured she had food and drinks. She kept apologizing for being an inconvenience to us. She told us that her son was very busy and important, and reading between the lines, it turned out that he rarely spent any time with her. "He's so busy all the time," she said, "I don't like to be a nuisance." She had been previously widowed and no other children or other relatives she could call on. It sounded like she led a lonely life, trying to be as independent as possible. This was her first time staying in hospital. As the day wore on, I could hear the increasingly desperate phone calls she was making to him trying to get collected. It wasn't hard to overhear him shouting down the phone at her that he was busy. Eventually, just before we were due to close, she called me over with an embarrassed face. "He's here," she said. "Oh good," I said. "Is he on his way in?" Her face reddened and she said, "He's waiting in the car and told me to get to him, but I don't think I can walk that far." She looked exhausted and like she wanted to cry. "Give me a sec and I'll take you to him," I said. I grabbed a wheelchair and while she nipped to the loo, I tucked a packet of sandwiches and crisps in her bag as I didn't trust he was going to look after her at home either. We got down to the entrance and she pointed out a supercar, can't remember the type. I saw the boot open but no one emerged from the car. I pushed her to the door and heard a gruff "Get in" from the guy in the driver's seat. I helped the lady into the car, carrying on a cheery conversation to help cover her embarrassment but also to make a point to the son. He didn't say a word or move a muscle as I wrestled with the wheelchair and his mother and deposited her things in the boot. I said goodbye to the lady and he closed the boot with a button, revved the engine in apparent impatience, and roared out of the car park. It's not a very interesting story and there was no comeuppance for the son, but even 20 years later I often think about that lady and wonder how she got on. I know that we don't always know what's going on in anyone's lives, but he seemed so hard on her. Poor lady, clearly the son doesn't care about the mother in the slightest. I hope she's alright and got some more willing help. I hope she left everything to charity. My first instinct is to think that that guy is a horrible person, but there's a chance that this woman was not a nice mother but put on a good show for the outside world. There's very real chance, but without knowing more, that guy sucked. Oh yeah, that does happen, doesn't it? Thinking of something true my sister told our cousins, I almost seconded, but cousin spoke first. "We don't believe you." They never wondered where we were, while mom was visiting their mom all those hours, late in the night, who was looking after the youngsters. She wasn't drinking or carousing, just visiting her sister. Her kids can watch each other. Oh, the older ones left the younger one alone? She'll be fine. No problem, she doesn't complain. Totally shitty, but you don't know the relationship people have with their kids. Granted, people can change, but some kids are still affected by trauma all the same. She may be a nice elder now, but could possibly have not been when raising him. I have a relative like this. She mellowed out after retirement, but that doesn't erase the kind of mother she was. I'm sure the people who have only known the current version of her think badly of her adult kids. They refused to let her live with them, and offered to help her find a good retirement home when she can no longer do the upkeep on her current place. IDK, I gotta wonder what kind of mother was she to him for him to treat her this way. This just screams returning negligence and indifference. Probably how she treated him growing up, as if he were a bother and a nuisance she could barely tolerate. Horrible parents can seem so nice, so different to others when they get old and needy. But their child remembers. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.